The forest floor crunched under our feet. Leaves glowed orange and red in the fading light. We had been hiking for hours.
It's getting late.
Yeah, we need to find a place to camp fast.
The woods grew darker. Shadows stretched, twisting familiar shapes into something menacing. Fear pricked at me, a cold shiver down my spine. We had to find shelter. Soon. Then we saw it, a light flickering between the trees. Hope surged through me.
Look!
We stumbled toward it, our fear momentarily forgotten. As we got closer, the flickering light resolved itself into a campfire. It was burning brightly, crackling merrily as if welcoming us, but there was no one there. Relief washed over me. We huddled closer to the warmth, the flames pushing back the growing darkness. Who would build a fire and just leave it?
This is kind of creepy.
His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fear. I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling. We were just being paranoid, right? The fire crackled, a log shifted, sending up a shower of sparks. I jumped, my heart pounding.
Did you hear that?
A low, guttural sound, like a growl, seemed to come from just beyond the ring of firelight. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. We all heard it. We weren't alone. My eyes darted around, trying to pierce the darkness beyond the firelight. That's when I saw them, the symbols, etched into the dry earth circling the fire pit. They were crudely drawn, angular and unsettling.
What are those?
Sarah breathed, her voice trembling. I didn't answer. Fear coiled in my stomach, cold and tight. These symbols, they felt ancient, powerful, and very, very wrong. We didn't hesitate. We didn't need to discuss it. The moment we heard that ominous growl, our instincts kicked in. We scrambled to our feet, gathering our things in a frenzy of fear. The growl echoed again, closer this time, and we ran. We ran through the darkness, branches whipping at our faces, our breath catching in our throats. The sound of our own terror was deafening. We didn't stop running until we reached the familiar dirt road, the faint glow of the moon, our only guide. The night was eerily silent except for the pounding of our hearts and the rustling of leaves underfoot. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound amplified by our heightened senses. We could feel the presence of something or someone behind us, urging us to keep moving. The fear was palpable, a living, breathing entity that pushed us forward. We glanced back occasionally, our eyes wide with terror, but we never slowed down. The thought of stopping, even for a moment, was unthinkable. We had to reach safety, had to find a place where the darkness couldn't touch us. The dirt road stretched out before us, a lifeline in the inky blackness of the night. We helped each other over fallen logs and through thick underbrush, our hands grasping desperately for any kind of support. The bond between us grew stronger with each passing second, our shared fear forging an unbreakable connection. We were in this together, and together we would find a way out. Finally, we burst into a clearing, the moonlight illuminating our faces, now streaked with sweat and dirt. We collapsed in relief, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. The growl was gone, replaced by the soothing sounds of the night. We had made it. We were safe for now. But the memory of that night, the terror we felt, would stay with us forever. It was a flight into the night that we would never forget. We stumbled into the campground, gasping for breath, our eyes wide with terror.
The other campers, settled around their own cheerful fires, stared at us with a mixture of amusement and concern.
We didn't tell them what we saw, what we heard. How could we explain the bone-chilling fear that clung to us like a shroud?
How could we describe the feeling that we were being watched, hunted by something ancient and hungry? Later, huddled in our tent, Emily spoke in hushed tones of local legends. The air was thick with anticipation, and every rustle of the tent fabric seemed to amplify the tension. Emily's voice, barely above a whisper, carried the weight of countless stories passed down through generations. Her eyes darted around, as if expecting the very spirits she spoke of to materialize at any moment.
Stories whispered around campfires, tales of a malevolent spirit that haunted the woods. This spirit, she said, was known to the locals as the Shadow Walker. It was said to appear on the darkest nights, its form barely distinguishable from the shadows it moved through. The Shadow Walker was a harbinger of doom, a creature that thrived on fear and despair.
A creature that lured unsuspecting travelers deeper into the forest, never to be seen again. The stories varied, but the core remained the same. Those who encountered the Shadow Walker were never the same. Some were found days later wandering aimlessly, their minds shattered. Others simply vanished, leaving behind only whispers and warnings.
"It's just a story," Josh said, his voice shaky. But even he couldn't quite meet our eyes. The firelight cast eerie shadows on his face, making his fear all the more palpable. We all wanted to believe it was just a tale, a figment of overactive imaginations fueled by the isolation of the woods. We knew deep down that the legend held a terrifying truth. The forest around us seemed to close in, the trees whispering secrets we weren't meant to hear. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves sent our hearts racing. The night was alive with sounds, each one a potential harbinger of the Shadow Walker. We had felt it in the flickering firelight, heard it in the growls on the wind. The wind seemed to carry voices, faint and distant, yet unmistakably human. It was as if the forest itself was warning us, urging us to leave while we still could. But curiosity and a sense of adventure kept us rooted to the spot, eager to uncover the truth behind the legend. The night stretched on, each minute feeling like an eternity, as we sat huddled together, waiting for the dawn to break and dispel the shadows. The rest of the night stretched on, interminable. Every rustle of leaves, every crack of a twig sent shivers down our spines. We lay awake, listening, waiting for the inevitable return of whatever had called to us from the darkness. The forest seemed alive, whispering secrets we couldn't understand. Shadows danced in the moonlight, creating eerie shapes that played tricks on our minds. We clung to our sleeping bags, seeking comfort in their thin fabric, but the sense of dread was overwhelming. The campfire, once a source of warmth and light, had dwindled to mere embers, casting a faint glow that barely pierced the surrounding darkness. We huddled closer together, our breaths visible in the cold night air. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the distant howl of a coyote. Time seemed to stand still, each minute stretching into an eternity. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that unseen eyes were tracking our every move. The weight of the unknown pressed heavily on our minds, making it hard to think clearly. Every decision felt monumental, every sound a potential threat. We whispered to each other, trying to make sense of the situation, but our words offered little comfort. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the night started to give way to dawn. The first light of morning broke through the trees, casting long shadows and bathing the forest in a soft golden hue. With the arrival of daylight, the oppressive atmosphere began to lift. The sounds of the forest changed, becoming more familiar and less threatening. Birds began to sing, and the rustling of leaves no longer seemed ominous. We packed up our things, eager to leave the campground and the memories it held. The experience had left us shaken, but also strangely exhilarated. We had faced the unknown and come out the other side, forever changed by the encounter. As we walked away, we couldn't help but glance back, wondering if we would ever truly understand what had happened that night. The weight of the unknown lingered, a reminder of the mysteries that still lay hidden in the world. We never spoke of that night again, but the memory lingered, a shadow in the corner of our minds. A reminder that there are things in this world that we do not understand, things that go bump in the night. And sometimes when the wind whispers through the trees, I swear I can still hear the crackling of that fire and the low guttural growl that sent us fleeing into the night.